So here's the thing. I'm going to go on and on for another 5 minutes. So there are two, you might know there are two kinds of empathy. One is emotional empathy, where it's fired by our mirror neurons, where if you see someone in pain, you automatically feel pain. It's hardwired into us. So that's emotional empathy. And then there's one thing called cognitive empathy, which is related to mentalizing, which is perspective taking, where you kind of think about why the other person is doing what they do. Here is the thing I found, and I need to find more research to back up what I'm saying, but I saw one or two articles and I think it's so right, this hypothesis. A lot of people who ended up getting de-diagnosis of BPD have very sensitive nervous system, and they actually are innately very emotionally empathic. So they catch on emotions very easily. They're quite susceptible to emotional contagions. So if they see someone in pain, you'll feel a lot of pain. It's a spectrum, right? Some people will be like, ouch. But like some people, oh my God, I see animals hurting and I start crying. So that's what they call empath these days. And I think a lot of people with BPD probably have a very high degree of emotional empathy. However, I think when they are dysregulated, it's because mood swings is a part of it, they lose the ability to mentalize, which is the cognitive side. So they lose the ability to think through, oh, why is my boyfriend cold to me today? Maybe he has got something at work. Maybe he's not feeling very well. They lose that ability to take the other person's perspective and they become very concrete. They talk about it in mentalization, where psychic equivalents, I think I've got a term for it, where things become very concrete, which is like, oh, if he looks like he doesn't like me because he has a cold, bitchy face, he must hate me. And then that becomes the reality. So it would look as though they've lost the ability to empathize because they've lost the cognitive empathy at that moment when they lose affect regulation. Sorry. So
no, but that seems very accurate and very true. I think that when anyone is dysregulated, you're not able to mentalize anything. Exactly. Why? It's because our nervous system is activated and everything is firing. Something is wrong. There's a threat nearby. Why would you then be able to rationalize as to what is going on?
Yeah.
And I also think that, and there is a big overlap, right, between narcissistic personality disorder and borderline. And so sometimes people, and I've heard this so many times, people will describe someone to me as having BPD. And when I'm listening to them, and then I need to correct them. No, you're actually describing NPD. This is not BPD. There is a misconception in society that the two traits are mixed up, often conjoined together. And so people then, this adds to this fuel that folks who have BPD are not empathetic, are not compassionate, but they're actually describing someone who has NPD. And as I mentioned, it's not a clear box, right? You could have someone who has different traits, different combinations from different personality, especially that they're all in the same cluster. It's very common to have a sprinkle of this and a sprinkle of that and a dash of this to make up this person who is way more complex than just BPD, NPD, histrionic personality disorder. It's there's a bit of everything. And so this makes it so that it's hard sometimes maybe to be empathetic because there's a stronger lenience towards narcissistic traits with underlying borderline traits. But when people look at this person, they see them as BPD.
What I also read about this whole empathy paradox is people with NPD, again, the society myth is they don't have empathy. So they're like kind of psychopathic. They're not able to empathize. What some research found is that actually that's not true. They have got a high degree of cognitive empathy, which means they can guess like, oh, what's going on with the other person. They can mentalize and then they may maliciously use it. And people with BPD is kind of the opposite in a way.
Exactly.
Where they can't help but they emotionally feel other people's pains, but they lose the ability to cognitively perspective take. Whereas people with NPD can take the other person's perspective and then they may do something with it